Welcome back, baseball fans, to the 78-81 draft. And we did the first 4 rounds, showing the cards, and showed you what I do for rounds 5 through 8. Rounds 5 through 8 have been completed. So every team has had a chance to make a draft pick in 8 rounds. 8 times 32 is 256. This is you're looking at first page of the teams. A blue line means it's a keeper. It's a guy who played for him last year or acquired in a trade in the off season. And then it was just the idea is just you pick which year of the 4. Try and pick his best year. The yellows are guys who were put on waivers and they found work with a new team. The red guys are guys who came out of retirement. They had some juice left in them. Maybe it was in the last year wasn't particularly good. Maybe took a year off and got better a year later. Who knows? But there were some retired players selected. The colorless white players are brand new dudes. Rookies, or they're not necessarily rookies. They're guys who have not been in the league yet, plus, which includes rookies. And then there's also this light green color for a player who is simply improved. In this example, Joe Youngblood, the Mets improved him. So they still need to add a position on the roster. And there's a total of 9 of these improved guys in the draft. As we scroll down and look at the combination of blues and yellows and white players. Actually, in this one guy, Pat Kelly, he wasn't traded. He was cut by the White Sox midway through the draft, and the Marlins picked him up later in the draft. So he sort of was a draft day cut. So he was a carry-on at the beginning of this thing, and it just turned out that the White Sox had too many left-handed hitting outfielders, and they had to let him go midway through the draft. And that's your 256. So the first way of looking at the draft is in the sort. I'm just going to highlight the first 20 rows here, and you'll see that in column B is the team abbreviation ARZ for Arizona. Okay, in 20 rows because 20 players. The green colors were guys they started the draft with in most occasions. You see there's some keepers, the 4 blue keepers, and then there's the other 3 players who are rookies or so basically, they signed free agent Tony Scott. They drafted rookie Fernando Valenzuela, Dave LeManchek, and Ed Whitson. Ed Whitson's rookie year, and Dave LeManchek was not in baseball, was not picked in previous years. Now I was. So that's how you would look at a particular team under this view. In column A, it shows you the year, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and that's how. It doesn't matter who is player 1 through 8. It just counts out the 8 numbered players in 1978. So the green guys, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I knew that before the draft, but it was players 1 and 2 who were drafted. Same thing in 79. 3, 4, 5, 6, but 1 and 2 were drafted. 3 and 4 and 80, 1 and 2 are drafted. 1 and 2 and 81 are drafted. And that's sort of the format of all the teams alphabetically. Scroll down to 640, and when you do that, you end up with the last players of Toronto. Toronto's 81 and 82. Now, after that, these are the remaining records of players who did not move in the draft. I'm going to, right now, eliminate the borders that can appear. Don't need those anymore. And you also see, as I scroll down, this light color green are players who are already in the league, in the draft, but other years. The years that they were not taken is what the green means. You also see some retired guys did not come out of retirement. Larry Bittner, unfortunately, for example, was not drafted, even though he had 4 years to pick from, which is a shame because he hit 290 one of those years. And who knows? We still have the token round of the draft, and someone could get him. And Ron Hodges, Carlos Lopez. Here's a nice card. 79 Bernie Carbo was not taken. It's an 806 OPS with St. Louis. That's a good card. It would be a good DH, and he was not drafted. Steve Bry, not so much. Actually, Paul Dade was drafted in the year of 79 to the... I can just delete that. Skaggs, Wayne Garrett. Willie Horton was not drafted. Dave Haverlow. He has a good 1980, but he wasn't drafted. Rick Roden, a nice pitcher, though he's got 3 years of an ERA between 350 and 4. And I don't know. I mean, somebody should pick him. He may go in the token round of the draft. He's a solid number 3 or number 4 starter, and he's just sitting there. Was undrafted. Kurt Bavacqua undrafted, but his stick is not doing what it once was. His 333 card of 1977 was in the league, and there's a big drop off from that card till his average performance. Tim McCarver, he has a couple 240 hitting years, but he's older and time to retire. Bill Campbell has 4 years to pick from, and it's the only good year is 81. He's got this weird split situation where he gets crushed by either lefties or righties and is good against the other side. It's really strange, and nobody wanted to take a chance on Bill Campbell. Doc Ellis, no one wants to run him back for his final year. Unfortunately, Rennie Stennett just could not find the hitting stroke he had in 1977, and he just stuck out there on the waiver list for a long time. And we get down to... And we have a player, a keeper, who wasn't kept at all. And nobody took him. And that was Barry Bonnell. Interesting, because I think he goes into a little bit of a slump here. He's got a nice 77 card and a nice 1983 card. But in between, he's just an ordinary corner outfielder. Good defensive player, but nobody took him. Toronto had him protected for the couple rounds, and they lose their protection after that, and nobody took him. Which gets us to the next set of records, and these are alphabetized in with no shading, no color scheme. These are simply alphabetized players who have not been in the league yet. This pink shading, of course, these are nameless cards that I made that I would not want to have in my league. So there are still, when you look at guys who are looking for work, you have, the list ends at 1563. And so these guys are looking for work as well. 1563 to 1963, which is 400, but it's not 400 players. It's 400 playing cards, but it's multiple versions of players. Sometimes 4 versions of their card. So that's the guys who are sitting out there, but remember, we don't necessarily want to take all the star players because you need to leave some talent in future drafts. So it's fine to notice some of the future players, like in 1981, who have not been drafted. That's fine. But it is the last chance for the 78 players. And so the next part is the token round of the draft. And we look at the number of tokens that teams have. If you recall the token system I mentioned in the trade carousel, teams start an off season with 5 tokens, or $5, 5 units to use in trades. And through the off season and through the draft, you gain or lose a token or 2 for each transaction you make. And we record, it's 5 per team, That's 160. And you finish with 160, of course. And I record every plus or minus for every team. And then I have a sum right here of who has the most tokens. And this year, the number is 7, or 2 more than you started with. Oakland, the Cubs, Toronto, and that's it of the 7s. So the way the token round of the draft would work is that Oakland would have the first pick, then the Cubs would have the second pick, then Toronto would have the third pick. Then you go to the 6s, and then Oakland again, the Cubs, the White Sox, the Mets, Toronto, and then the next 6, etc., etc., and you do the rest of the 6s. Then again with Oakland at 5, and then you see how Oakland would have the first and the 4th choices in the token round of the draft. This is where teams look at their roster and see where they want to replace a guy. And this is kind of the waiver list, is how I look at it. Last year, I have last year's results. And it was quite an active round. You saw that these are all... A team could pass if they're happy with what they have, and if you pass, then you don't... you can't jump back in. It's funny, the Cubs, again, last year they had 7 tokens. But they passed. They were happy with their roster. They were happy with their draft. But then you saw that teams took 3 guys again. And then this is keeping track of the tokens, 6s and 5s and the 4s. By the time you get to 5s and 4s, teams are starting to pass. The 4s, the 3s. And then eventually you find the teams who don't have any money, any tokens, and they finally, way down here, like Cleveland added this player after having to wait for 3 rounds. And then you have, at the very end, you have all sorts of teams who hadn't passed yet, still trying to add guys. And so this process in itself started at how many record number 261 through 393. It's 132 picks. That's a little bit more than half of the length of the draft. It's almost like doing another 4 rounds with passes involved, of course. But that's what the token round is. It's a fair way of letting teams fix their rosters, but doing it by letting the most needy teams get first crack at it. And that's the next phase of the draft. Next video I'll do will be the token results for the Carryover League. Thanks for checking this stuff out. We'll see you next time.